Hello everyone. So very good evening and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So hope you are doing well. So welcome to the job competence program day 3. So guys, in the third day of our JCP program, we will be discussing about different types of malwares. So in every day the attacks are happening through the malwares also, right? So we'll be discussing what is malware and what are the different types of malwares and how to prevent the attacks from the malware. So and the basic examples and how to create a malware and the basic program of the malware and how to analyze the malwares. So we'll be discussing this kind of stuff today. Okay, so before going to start this malware concepts, yesterday we have not done with the practical part, right? Yeah, today we'll start with our scanning part practical. Okay, let's see what are the nmap scans and all, right? So after completing the nmap scans, next we'll move to the our day 3 concept, that is malwares. Yeah, now we'll start with nmap scans. Let's talk about nmap scans. Okay, yeah, so yesterday as we have discussed about 5 types of nmap scans, right? TCP scan, stealth scan, and fin scan, eczema scan, null scan, right? So now again we'll have just quick recap on that particular scans. Next we'll see the practical on that particular scans. Okay, first we'll start with our first scan, that is -st TCP full connect scan. The first scan is TCP full connect scan. Yeah, so it indicated as the structure of the TCP full syntax of the TCP full connect scan is -s capital T. Yes, so in this case, in this type of scan, what will happen? Now see, let's say let's say there is one person. Okay, let's say it is A. Okay, let's say it is B, or we can say that server also something. So this is our second machine. Okay, now here A is there, here B is there. In the TCP full connect scan, what will happen? So I'm talking about the open ports. Whenever you want, would like to find about the open ports. So I'm talking about the scenario of the first open ports. Next we'll move to the closed ports. So this is about open ports. Yes. Now in this case, what will happen? Let's take here. Yeah. The person A will send the send request. So when he send a send request to the B, so what is the reply? He will send Synadak, right? So after receiving the Synadak from the B, so what A will send? He will send the acknowledgement, right? Let's say send request, we got Synac, and next we have sent acknowledgement. And we can say this is the three-way handshake method, right? And this is the genuine process, I mean genuine way of starting the communication. So whenever you send a SYN request, you are getting reply from the server, that is Synac. Again, you are sending the acknowledgement. So this is the three-way handshake method. So whenever you are getting this type of reply in the TCP full connect scan, it means the port is open. Okay, let's move to the second scan. So that is We can say, what is that scan? TCP half connect scan. TCP half connect scan. So need not worry about practicals. I will show the practical once completed this theoretical one. Yeah, TCP half connect scan. We can also call it is the scan is half open scan. Or we can also call stealth scan. And by default, Nmap will perform the scan. So Nmap default scan is stealth scan, half connect scan, we can say that, and half open scan. And in this scan, so in this type of scan, what will happen? Let's say same example we'll take. Yeah. See, here person A is there. So it's B. Now here A, we have B, right? So in this scan, what will happen? Let's say whenever A send a request to the B, that is send request, right? Yes, we will be receiving the Synack, right? So we have received the request from the Synack server, right? We have sent Syn over here. We got Synack, right? Next, the response from the A is reset. It means already we got reply from the solver, that is Synack. So again, it's not needed to connect again to server, right? So that's why we'll be sending with the reset attack. So we got reply from the Synack from the server. So again, no need to contact the server, right? So that's why we'll be sending the reset packet over here. Okay, so that is TCP half connect scan. So Nmap is come up with a different scans. So this is the first scan and this is the second scan. So what is the different from the first scan is, so we have received already Synack. So here my question is, so why to contact the server, right? So that's why we'll be sending we are closing the connection, that is reset, right? Next, we have one more scan, that is the third scan is fin scan. Fin scan. And it is indicated as -s, small s, and capital F. And this stealth scan is indicated as -s, capital S. Yes. So when it comes to the fin scan, so in this case, what will happen? So in this case, we'll take same example. Let's say this is A, okay, and this is B, right? Now, so in this scan, what will happen? Let's say A and we have B. Yeah. So when you're talking about the fin scan, so whenever A send fin request to the B, so will we get reply? We don't get any reply because we are sending fin flag over here. So if you're not getting reply means the port is open. So in the second scan, so we are getting we have already received Synack. It means the port is open. So here we have received Synack and we have sent acknowledgement. That means port is open. So coming to the fin scan, so whenever you send fin flag to the server, so definitely you won't get any reply. That means the port is open. Yes. So in order to find out the open ports, we will be using these type of scans. So when it comes to the fourth scan, so what is the fourth scan we have? Yesterday we have discussed EXMA scan. EXMA scan. EXMA scan. So it is indicated as -S, capital S, capital X. It means here in this case, what is happening? In this case, what is happening? Yeah, let's say this is A and this is B, right? Yeah. So in this case, what is happening? So in this EXMA scan, so we are sending multiple flags over here. That means which flags we are sending over here? We are sending push flag, and we are sending fin flag, and we are sending urgent. So whenever you are sending these type of flags, definitely you won't get any reply from the server. It means the port is open. And we have fifth scan we have, that is the fifth scan is null scan. -S, we can say that null scan. So it is indicated as -S capital N. -S capital N. Yes. In this case, what will happen? Yes, we have A and we have B, right? Here, yes. So in this case, so we are not sending any flag. So we are sending no flag. So suppose if we are using the null scan, means it means you are not sending any flag, but whenever you don't send any flag, you don't get any reply from the server. It means the port is open. So this is the 5 situation where I'm talking about the open ports. So let's say about the closed ports. I would like to talk about the closed ports. Closed ports. Yes. In the situation of closed ports, what will happen? Let's say we have machine A and we have machine B. Okay. So in this situation, we have A and B, right? Yes. In this closed port, suppose if you send any scan, that is what is SYN or acknowledgement, I mean SYN or FIN push. So if you send any flag, you will get reset. If the port is closed, means definitely you will get reset flag. Any flag. If you send any flag, so the port is closed, means you will get reset. So this is in the case of closed ports. Yeah. See, this is my VMware workstation. I'm just opening my terminal. Yeah. See what I have done over here. I have turned on my attacker, that is my parrot, and I'm just taking an example. The victim is my Metasploitable 2 mission. So what is this mission is? It is a vulnerable mission. The mission which is having more number of open ports. Okay, and I don't have any access to this mission. Now whatever I'm doing from the parrot, I need to find out from the parrot. As attacker, so I need to find out the IP address. I need to find out whether the mission is up or down. I need to find out the open ports, and I need to find out the what are the services are running on that particular port. So when it comes to the enumeration part, we need to find out the version details of the services. Let's see now. Now, yes, we got an IP address of the my parent mission. Perfect. Now, my goal is I would like to find out the Metasploitable 2 mission IP address. What we can do? So we are in an internal network. So in the internal network, in order to find out the IP address of the other missions, what we can do? We'll do ARP scan. I would like to know the IP address of my victim, right? So I will use ARP scan. I'm just doing this command in order to find out the what are the missions are available in my network. I will prove it to you. This IP address is Metasploitable mission IP address. So what I will do, just I will ping to that particular IP address. Ping. So ping is the command where we can use for whether the host is live or not, right? Now ping 192.168.18.128, right? Here you can see in the replay, the ping replay. So we are getting the replay from the other end, means the host is up. That is the first point. Okay. The second point is you can look at the TTL value. You conclude the IP address, and we can say the IP address of the victim mission based on the TTL value. Okay. So TTL 64 means Linux. TTL 128 means TTL value 64. Yes, you can see Metasploitable mission name over here. That is Linux mission, right? So we have found that our victim. So that is the IP address of our victim, right? And we have done two steps. One is whether the host is up or not. Yes, we are getting the replay. The host is up. The first step is gone, right? The second step is we found whether it is the our target or not, right? So based on the TTL value, we just confirmed that our target is Metasploitable. That's fine. Now, so what I will do, I will do Nmap scan now. In order to, our next agenda is we need to find out the open ports. Nmap. So basically we can use this command, Nmap network mapper command. So in order to do the scan, so what we'll be doing over here, Nmap. So what is the target IP address? 192.168.18. Now I would like to scan all the ports. So if you do the scan, so what is the replay? You can see. Yes, you can see Nmap space 192.168.18.128. So I am just hitting the enter, guys. Yes, you can see what happened. It scanned only 1000 well-known ports. But in our systems, we have how many ports? 65,530 and only 1000 well-known ports. Now I would like to scan all the ports. So for that, there is a command called nmap -p -p-. If you give this command, it will scan all the 65,536 ports. -p space and our target 192.168.18.128, right? Yes, 128. Yes. So if you do this scan, it will scan all the ports for us. See, when you look at the results over here, yes, 65,505 are closed ports. It means how many ports are open? 30 ports are open, right? Yes, we found 30 ports are open, 21, 22, and we can see the services what are running on that particular ports. FTP, SSH, you can see that, right? So now what I will do, Now we'll start with our Nmap scans one by one. You can go for the pen. Yes, you can see in the first scan. So this is when we're talking about open ports. I will take one open port. I will send SYN request, right? I will use this scan. What will happen? You can see -S capital T, right? Yes. We'll go back to our Linux. Yes. Now Nmap -S capital T TCP full connect scan. Okay. And what? Let's take one open port. Let's take one open port. I will take port number 80. Okay. So whenever we are talking about the port, I mean open port, so you can mention open port like this. We can give the command like -p space 80, port number 80. Okay, and your target IP address. What is the target IP address? 192.168.18.128, right? Nmap -S capital T, and I'm sending the I'm doing the scan on port number 80 because the port number 80 is open. Now whether we'll get the reply or not, we'll see now. Now I will open another terminal. Yes. Now I will show the packets. Okay. So in order to turn on the Wireshark, you can use this command Wireshark. Yes, you just hit, I'm just hitting enter. It will open Wireshark for us. So wait a second, guys. Yes. So the Wireshark has opened over here. Now, so what is this Wireshark? It is a packet capturing utility. So whatever the logs are created somewhere in the background, what it will do, it will give in front of us, right? It will give all the logs in front of us. Now simply I will run this echo. This is the one of the interface. I'm just, what I will do, I'm just start sniffing. You can, here you can see, yes, you can see on the screen there is a top left side, there is a button called Wireshark logo is there, right? So that is the button where you can start capturing the packets, and beside that button there is a button called stop capturing the packets. So there is a button called round color button is there, black color. You can see that means promiscuous mode. By default, I mean Wireshark tool will come with promiscuous mode on. If you click on this button, promiscuous mode will off. So what is this promiscuous mode? Let's say if the promiscuous mode is on means, okay, how if there is multiple machines are there, right? So whatever the logs is going, whatever the traffic is going for all the machines, you can capture over here. If you turn off the promiscuous mode, the only traffic which is going from this machine and which is the traffic coming to this particular machine only we can capture. So that is the advantage of promiscuous mode. Just leave it that, and I'm just capturing these packets. I'm just click on this button, so it will start doing the capturing the packets. Okay, now I will go back to the my terminal. Yeah, you can see on the screen the scan. So there are a lot of traffic is coming. So instead of aware that all the traffic, what I will do, I will just apply filter over here. IP dot address. I'm just applying the filter over here. Okay, and just, yeah, yeah. Still it is coming. Oh, okay. One minute, guys. All the traffic is coming. Wait for a second. So what I will do, so I will give port number also. Yeah, I'm just giving the TCP port number 80. I'm just yeah. Now you okay, whose traffic is coming? Yeah. So it will confuse you. That's why I'm just applying the filter. I would like to show the only traffic going from the 128. So that's why I'm applying the filter instead of showing all the. Yes, you can see in the Wireshark tool. You can see in the Wireshark tool. So when I'm doing that scan, what is happening? You can look at on the screen. We have sent SYN request. We got SYN and ACK. Next is, so we are sending SYN request on the port number 80. The port number 80 has replied with SYN and ACK, and we have established a connection on the port number 56228 from our parent, right? So what is this reset means? Already the connection has established. There is no further communication is won't happen on this particular port. So that's why I'm closing this port number 56228 and the port number 80. So that is the reset ACK. That means SYN ACK, and after establishing the connection, I have closed that particular connection. There is no further communication on this particular port. So that is the indication of this reset ACK. SYN ACK, right? Now what I will do, I will go with another scan. Okay, I will go with another scan -S, capital S, on port number 80. Again, I will remove this traffic and I will show you only the stealth scan operation. Yeah, I'm just stopping this one and starting, continue without saving, and I'm going to the terminal part. See, now, so when I hitting on enter, one minute. Yes, I have done this one. See, you can see in the Wireshark, we have sent SYN request, we got SYN and ACK, and next we have sent reset in the stealth scan. Already we got replay from the server, right? Particular machine, particular victim. Again, last finally what we are sending reset. Why to contact again, right? Why to send again? So that's why we are sending, we are closing the connection. SYN ACK reset, right? Are you able to see this pattern? SYN ACK reset. Yes, right? Now, so we'll go with our third scan. What is our third scan? Capital F, right? Yes, I will stop this one. Yes, now I will show the only the fin scan now. So when I'm just hitting on enter, yes, you can see the replay. So in the fin scan, what will happen? Whenever you are sending the fin, there is no replay from the server, right? You can see, right? Yes. Now we'll go with another scan. That is our EXMA scan, right? EXMA scan. So whenever you are sending the EXMA scan means we are sending pin push urgent, right? It means if the port is open, we don't get any reply, right? You can see. You can see here, pin push urgent. We are not getting any reply. That means port is open. How we can say the port is open? Because we are sending the, we are doing the scan on the port number 80 because the port is open. Now the last scan is null scan. -S capital N on port number 80. Yes. Now I will stop this one. Again, I will start the trophy. Yes, we'll go the terminal. Yes. I am just hitting the enter. You can see. So we have sent no scan. Okay. Null scan means we have not sent a no flag. We are not, I mean, we are not getting any reply, right? That means the port is open, right? Yes. So this is a scenario where we are talking about the open ports, right? Now I will, let's see the on the closed ports. Let's see one closed port. You can see the port is, what is the closed port we have? 21, 20. These are the open. We'll take port number 82 is closed, right? Because it is showing only open ports here. I'm just taking the closed port number 82. Okay, let's say you can tell any port also closed port. I'm just taking the 82. Yes, in this case, port number closed port scenario. Yes. So if you send any scan, if you do any scan, null scan also you can do. We'll start with first scan. The first scan -S capital A. PC full cannot scan. So in this case, what will happen, right? So I'm just stopping this. And again, I'm starting. In the closed port scenario, what will happen? If you do any scan on the closed port, you will get reset, right? We have sent acknowledgement. What you get, what you got over here, reset, right? It means the port is open. The port is closed. Sorry, the port is closed. And you can do one more scan, -S capital yes, stealth scan you can do. I'm just hitting the enter. You can see on the Wireshark again we got reset tag. We have not changed the port number 80. Yeah, and again we can do the pin scan on port number 82. We got reset tag. See, we are not getting any reply, right? In the case of closed port. Yeah. So this is about open ports and closed ports. And see, when you go back to the our first one, is this one, you can see all ports. Yes, right? -P means -P means it will do the all ports, right? Now you can see on the results what is happening. I'm just stopping this one. Yes, see, so we got open ports, port numbers and their state, whether it is open or closed, and we got service, right? So whenever you're talking about the enumeration part, we need to know the service versions. Suppose we can see and the port number 21 FTP is running. At which version it is running, right? No, right? So for that, there is a command called -s capital V, version details of the particular services. You just hit an enter, you will get the version details of the services. So based on the services, you can find out the vulnerabilities. If the vulnerabilities exist, you can find out the exploits and you can exploit that particular service. So that will happen. So whenever you find the vulnerabilities related to the services. So wait for a second, guys. Wait a second, guys, because there is nmap come with multiple options. I have not mentioned another options. That's why it is taking a lot of time. Because so whenever you are doing nmap scan, what it will do, it will follow 5-step process. First, it will do the ping. It will ping to the particular target. Next, it will do the DNS. Okay. Next, it will do the reverse DNS. Next, it will run the scripts. It will show the open ports, and next it will show the it will run the scripts. That's why it is taking this much of time. Background, that much is happening. So in order to block that all the things, there is some other commands we have. Okay. Anyway, we got replay over here. See. So we got service version details also, right? Now you can ask a question like, sir, what we can do with that version, right? For every service there is a version, right? So for that version, you can just make a note of this version details and you can Google it for the vulnerabilities. You can find out the exploit and you can exploit into this particular FTP. So same way for every particular service we can do that. So when coming to the, yes, we can find the vulnerabilities and you can exploit it. Yes. To the what is that third way, I mean, what is that, yes, enumeration part. So we are not only rely on one tool when coming to the enumeration, because so whenever you're in the part of enumeration, we don't rely on only nmap. There are multiple tools are available. We can use that multiple tools, and whenever you're doing enumeration, and don't rely on only one tool. We have MSF console, we have multiple tools in order to do the enumeration. So not only one tool, because we are getting the results over here. We will be getting only few results over here. So whatever the results we got, I mean, we didn't get over here, we will be getting with some other tools. So that's why, so we cannot use only one tool. We have to use multiple tools. So just now I'm just taking the analogy of the nmap. Okay. When coming to the Wireshark comes with 3 tabs over here. You can see 3 tabs. First tab, second tab, third tab. First tab is packet capturing tab. Second tab, packet analysis, and we can find out the details about each and every packet in the third tab. So this is the nmap UI. You can see. So this is a start capturing the packets, stop capturing the packets, and a promiscuous mode. And you can apply a lot of filters. So whatever the logs you want, whatever the traffic you want, you can apply the filter by using different rules over here. So this is the Wireshark tool, packet capturing tool, and that is the nmap. In order to scan the particular our targets, we'll be using the let's move to the our today's agenda, that is malwares. Just I will close this one. Metasploitable. So if you want to explore with nmap, okay. So if you want to explore with a command, you can see where you can see all the commands with nmap, whatever the available options with nmap. Nmap hyphen space h. Nmap help page will come. You can see whatever the options with nmap. You can see, you can explore with the nmap. Yes. Target specifications, you can see. You can scan multiple IPs at a time by using this command. And in order to discover the host, we can use this. And we have different types of scan techniques, whatever we have discussed just now. And we can do the port specification -p. If you want to do only one port, -p if you want to scan all the ports, -p hyphen. If you want to scan only one port, -p only, and the respective port number. Service version detections, for you can use these commands. And you can OS detection, we can also use based on value. Also you can find out the OS of the target, and if you give -o, you will find out the OS of the target. And you can give the timing performance also. And firewall IDS IPS evasion techniques, and you can use, you can order to bypass the firewalls, and you can also use this type of commands you can see. And if you want to save your outputs, you can use this count results, you can use these commands. So there are a lot of come with Nmap. And there is an official website of Nmap is there. You can visit nmap.org something. You can visit that Nmap and you can use that. And by default inbuilt, our parrot will come with Nmap. So in order to open the Nmap, you can just type Nmap. That is the command. Now, so we can say the malware is the basic definition. We can say it is a software developed by the cyber attackers with the intention of gaining access or causing damage to a computer or network, right? Yeah. Now, so here my question is, what does malwares do? So what the purpose of the malwares? What is the purpose of the malwares? So I can say that malwares can crack weak passwords, and they will look into our systems and spread through the networks. They will infect the system. Yes, Arshad, perfect. Yes, right. And we have different types of malwares, and each type of malware do the different types of tasks, right? When we can say that, um, let's say we have, malware attacks can result in anything. We can say the data theft, or we can say destruction of entire system or devices, right? Yeah. Now you can, when you go for the next slide, yes, you can see the definition of the malware on the screen. So there is a definition of the malwares. Now here I have different type, I have different questions over here. Why malware programmers develop and use malware? So what is the intention behind the while they are writing the, while they are developing the malwares? Because they will use attack browsers and track websites visited, right? So with the intention of the attack browsers, and in order to harm the systems and degrading the system performances purpose, also they will develop the malwares. And in order to steal personal information, in order to steal contacts information, right, they will develop the malwares. And in order to attack additional computer systems directly from a compromised system, they will use these malwares. And in order to cause what we can say hardware failure, right, in order to make the hardware failure and rendering computers inoperable. So we will be, the attackers, the hackers will develop the malwares with intention of all these things, right? Now when we go to the next slide, yes, what are the common techniques used by the attackers in order to distribute the malware on the web? So basically the malware is infected by the internet, right? So we are visiting many web, daily we are using our mail IDs, we are logging into the multiple social networks, we are using the LinkedIn, we are using the different types of job sites and different types of mails we will be using, right? So we are using internet, means we have a risk from the malware, right? So what are the common techniques which are used by the attackers in order to distribute the malware on the web, right? So what they will use, so they will use the different types of black hat, we can say SEO, search engine optimization techniques. They will use the social engineering techniques in order to deploy the malware on the internet. And they will use the compromised legitimate websites in order to deploy the malware on the particular website, and they will use the spam emails also, and they will do the spear phishing sites. So there are different ways in order to deploy the malware and the distribute the malware on the web. So I said SEO, right? Search engine optimization techniques. Search engine optimization. So what it means? So we can say it is also referred as unethical SEO. So what they will use, attackers aggressively they will use the SEO tactics such as keyword stuffing, so inserting doorways pages and unrelated keywords to get higher search engine rankings in the malware pages. So they will use these type of techniques, and attackers will use social engineering techniques, like attackers inject malware into website so that appear legitimate to trick users into clicking on that particular website. So when the users click on that particular links, the malware embedded in the links executes without knowledge of the user, without knowledge of the user on that website. So right? Malvertising and compromise legitimate. There are multiple techniques hacking web. And coming to the next slide, yes, what are the different ways for malware to enter into a system? What are the different ways malware enter into a system? Let's say instant messenger applications. So the infection can occur through the via instant messenger applications, like we are using Facebook, right? Facebook Messenger. We are using WhatsApp Messenger. We are using LinkedIn. We are using Google Hangouts, right? Like many applications we are using, right? So users are at high risk while receiving files via instant messengers. So regardless of who sent the file, or we can say from where it is sent, so there is always risk of infection by a malware. So the user can never be 100% sure of the person who is sending that particular file, right? And the other end, the connection at any particular moment, right? So for example, if you receive a file through an instant messenger application from a known person, we can say you got a what is that file from your friend. So what you will do, you will try to open that particular file, right? In order to view that particular file, you will definitely open that file because the file has received from your friend. So this could be a trick where an attacker who has hacked your friend, right? And they will hack your friend messenger IDs and password, and they will use uh, malwares across your friend contacts list and to trap more victims. And we can say someone say that yes, for example, if your friend I mean your friend system, let's say an example of portable hardware. Let's say if your friend absence, if your friend in your friend absence, you can install a malware by copying any malware in his system, right? By using any portable device, any portable hardware media and removable device, right? And and another way of the malware getting in the system is through browser. So outdated web browser often contain vulnerabilities, right? So whenever you open that particular webs and use the particular browsers, any if you visit any malicious website from your browser, automatically it will infect the machine without downloading or any executing the program. So to reduce such kind of risks, you can always use the latest version of the browsers and email softwares. And next, insecure patch management. Because of insecure patch management also, there will be chance of malware getting into the system. Let's say unpatched software poses high risk, right? So users at IT administration don't update their application software, right? So and many attackers take advantage of this well-known fact. So that's why attackers can exploit insecure patch management by injecting the software with malwares. So that can damage the data stored in the company's system. So this process can lead to the extensive security breaches. We can say stealing of confidential files and company credentials also we can breach by if you are doing insecure patch management. So that is the one of the way. And some websites even link to anti-trojan software. Let's say every day we will be using is linked to the anti-malware software. So whenever you are posting any link, whenever you are sharing any link on the LinkedIn, our LinkedIn will scan that particular link, whether it is malicious or not, it will tell you, right? Yes. So many websites, like some websites even link the anti-malware software. So what they're doing, they will fooling the users into trusting them and downloading the infected malwares. So therefore, I mean, I can say that don't use that type of websites, and we can say that, so before you downloading any softwares and all, you need to check the proper link, so whether it is malicious or not. And untrusted sites, free web applications, right? So many malicious websites have professional look, am I right? And we can say that, I mean, many websites is having feedback forums and links and other popular sites, right? So because of this website looks professional, it does not mean that is the safe. So always download popular software from its original official websites. Okay. And downloading files from the internet is one of the way of getting malware into the system, right? Like we will be downloading daily music players, files, movies, games, greeting cards, screensavers, many things we will be downloading, right? Even so that will be having the malwares. Email attachments, as you said, email attachments. So we'll be clicking on the email attachments, right? The attachment may be a document, audio file or video file. We can say invoice, we can say offer letter from the company. So we can say loan approval from the bank, contract approval. So the many attachments will come, right? So there is a there is a way of chancing malware getting into the system. And Bluetooth, I can say Bluetooth is also one of the threat vector. I mean, by Bluetooth, through Bluetooth also we can inject the malware into our system. So attackers use open Bluetooth and Wi-Fi networks to attract the users to connect them. So these open networks have software and hardware devices installed at the router level to capture the network traffic and data packets. And we can say, and they will be finding the account details of the users, so including usernames and password they will steal. So never ever connect to the public Wi-Fi's. And if you connect also, don't do the confidential transactions, like don't use the bank websites, so don't send any passwords and username to the others. Okay. And so these are the multiple ways malware getting into our system. So when we move to the next slide, see, you can look at on the screen, you can look at on the screen. Yes, there is the components of a malware. So what are the components? So you can say the malware developers, the attackers create a malwares using these components. So so these are the components help them to achieving their goals. So they can use these malwares in order to steal the information, in order to delete the data, in order to change system settings, in order to provide the access. So there are a lot of goals, right? And in order to occupy the space of the system. So malware is capable by propagating and functioning secretly. So that's why they will be using different types of components. So you can see on the screen: cryptor, downloader, dropper, exploit, injector, packer, payload, malicious code. So what are these components, right? So when it comes to the cryptor, it is a software. It is a software program, so that can conceal the existence of a malware. So attackers use this cryptor software to elude antivirus detection. It protects malware from reverse engineering or analysis. So whenever you are using malware analysis, also if you use this cryptor, it is very difficult to detect by the security people, securities mechanisms also, right? And there is a downloader. I can say that it is a one type of software downloader. So what it will do? So what it will do, it will download other malwares or malicious codes and files from the internet to into your system or device. Usually attackers install a downloader when they first gain the access to the system. So suppose I have access to your, I'm having the access to your system. After getting access to your system, what I will do, I will install downloader. through that malware. And we have dropper. So what dropper will do? It is a, we can say that covert carrier. It means it will hide the malware. So attackers embed, we can say that, so which can, this dropper can perform the installation task covertly. Covert means we can say it will hide that installation part. Attackers need to first install the malware program and then execute the dropper. So the dropper can transport the malware code and execute the malware code on a target system without being detected by antivirus scanners. So that is the main intention of dropper. And we have exploit. As we have discussed in the day one class, exploit, it is something, we can say it is a part of the malware. It is a few lines of code, we can say, and we can say that sequence of commands also. So which will take the advantages of our vulnerabilities, right? And attackers use that code in order to breach the system security. And when it comes to the injector, so this is also one of the component of malware. We can say this is the software program which will inject the exploits or malicious code available in the malware into the vulnerable running processes. And what it will do, it will changes the method of execution to hide or prevent. In order to hide or prevent, and it will do that particular task. And we have packer component. So we can say this is also one of the software which will be used by the attackers. So what it will do, it will convert the code and the data of the malware into an unreadable format. It use the compression techniques. So what packer will do, it will use the compression techniques to pack the malware. And we have payload. So as we have discussed the payload in the day one class, it is a part of the malware, we can say, that performs the desired activity when activated. So when the malware has injected, so when it is activated, it will perform that particular task. It may be used for deleting or modifying the files, degrading the system performance, it will opening the ports, it will change the settings, so etc. It will compromise the system security also, right? And many things. And when it comes to the malicious code, we can say that this malicious code, piece of code, okay, that defines, we can say, basic functionality of the malware, so which compromise and commands in the results of security breaches. And it can take the different content also, and that is malicious code. So these are the components of malwares. So when you're talking about the, yes, you can see on the screen, we have different types of malwares, right? Trojans, backdoors, rootkits, ransomwares, adwares, viruses, worms, spywares, right? So there are many, right? Botnets, cryptors, right? So what we'll discuss one by one. So what is and all, right? So first we'll start with, we'll go for next one. Yeah, what is virus? Vital information resources under siege, right? So virus stands for vital information resources under siege. So what it will do? It will take entire system resources and it will be eating all the resources. So that is what virus will do. And what is the main function of the virus is, it will self-replicating, replicating a program. So we can say, suppose your system has infected with virus. So what it will do? It will self-replicating the program and replicate itself within a system, and it needs human agent click. So that is virus. And when it moves to the characteristics of viruses, you can see on the screen, it will infect other programs within a system, and it will transform itself and encrypt themselves, alter the data. Viruses, it will change the data, and what it will do, it will corrupt the files and programs, and it will, we can say that, self-replicate once. And how does a computer get infected by virus? So there are a lot of ways. We have already discussed about some downloads, email attachments, failing install security software through browsers, through pop-ups, through removal media, through network access, backup and restore. Sometimes we'll be taking the backup, right, in our system. So we'll be taking our backup, right? So whenever you're backing up these files, if the already your system has infected with the virus, if you back up particular file to into your hard drive, something, so that will be stored in your hard drive. Whenever you connect that particular device again it will harm your system. So that is what happen when you're backing up and restore the data. And malicious online ads on social media, already we have discussed in previous slides. And next, types of viruses. See, you can see on the screen types of viruses: macrovirus, stealth virus, file extension virus, polymorphic virus, metamorphic virus, cavity virus. So what is meant by macrovirus? Let's say macrovirus means which will be affecting your MS Office files. So every day we'll be dealing with the MS Office files, right? Word, PPT, Excel, and right. So it will be affecting, it will be targeting that particular files. It will be targeting the MS Office files. And when it comes to the stealth virus, so what it will do, as soon as our antivirus detecting it, it will be hiding behind the another one's detected. So it will be hiding the legitimate program. It will be hiding back the legitimate program. So that is stealth virus. And when it comes to the file extension virus, it will be affect particular extensions. Let's say particularly .pdf, .exe, executable files, yes, .exe, .pdf. So it will target particular type of file extensions. And we have polymorphic virus. What is this polymorphic virus? Whenever the system is infected with polymorphic virus, so what it will do, so whenever it replicates, whenever it runs, the same code and different algorithm will be generated. So whenever the hacker has developed this polymorphic virus, whenever it is replicating in our system, the same code will be executed, but by using different algorithms, it will be executed. So that is polymorphic virus. So you have to remember the keyword is same code and different algorithm. So when it comes to the metamorphic virus, what is meant by metamorphic? So every time different code and different algorithm. So we can say that it will be mutating itself in a new form. Every time when it is mutating from one system in the system, it will be generated different code and a different algorithm. That is metamorphic virus. Yes, when it comes to the cavity virus. So what is meant by cavity? So filled up with cavity, right? We can say random strange numbers, random strange content. We can say that that is cavity. So what it will do, if you're having a file, so it will be removing all the contents inside the file, and it will fill up with cavity. We can say that cavity means random strange numbers. I mean, it is in the readable format, but we cannot read perfectly. It is not in the readable format. So that is cavity. It filled up with cavity. Okay. It will remove content from the file. It will fill up with some unwanted stuff. When it moves to the yes, when it moves to the next one, what is Trojan? Yes, when it comes to the Trojan, Trojans are malicious files, we can say, so which are used by the hackers to create a backdoor access without the knowledge of the user. It usually deletes and replaces the OS critical files. It will steals the data, okay, and send notifications to the remote hackers. So, and there will be remote control the target remotely. They will be controlling the victims, and Trojans usually hide behind a genuine code or program or file, we can say. So in order to avoid getting noted by the user, they will be they will be hiding behind a genuine user, and it establishes a backdoor connection with remote hackers. Yes, get control and cause damage. BSS, I mean, your system has infected with the Trojan attack. So basically what will happen, you can just automatically file created delete, perfect. So that DVD ROM drawer opens and closes automatically. The computer screen blinks and flips upside down, okay, and the default background or wallpaper settings change automatically, and the printers automatically start printing the document sometimes, and the web pages suddenly open without input from the user. So if you don't give any input to the website also, sometimes that pages will open suddenly. And the color settings of the operating system changes automatically, and the sound volume suddenly increases, sometimes it will fluctuates up and down, low and high, we can say. And the date and time of the computers will change sometimes, and the keyboard and mouse will freeze, and we are not able to do anything with this keyboard and mouse. And there are lot of things, I mean lot of indications will be there whenever the Trojan attack is happen. We can say that the worm is a standalone malicious program which spreads from computer to computer. So when I'm talking about the virus, it will replicate within the system, right? So when you're talking about the worm, it will replicate from one system to the another in a network. But unlike virus, it has the capability to travel without any human action. A worm takes advantage of file or information, and it will transport the features on the system, okay. And when it comes to the main difference between the worms and viruses, we can say virus is a program that replicates, it spreads from one one file to another file on the system, and it may be programmed to erase all the damaged data, right? And a virus is a set of code which adds itself existing the files. So when it comes to the worm, a worm is a malicious program that originates on a single computer and searches for other computers connected through a local area network, okay. And when worm finds another computer, it replicates itself from that computer to the another computer and continues, and it will continue to look for all the connected computers in the network. So that is the main difference of the worm and virus. So how to tell your computer has a worm? You can see on the screen. So it will replicate from one system to the another system. So that is the main difference. So virus, it will be only in the one system. You can see how to tell your computer has a worm. Monitor speed and performance, it will be affected. And keep an eye on your hard drive space. You need to check your hard drive space and be on the lookout of missing new files. So if there is any happening these kind of things on your system, there is a worm in your system. I can say that out of all the malwares spread over the internet, the keyloggers are the some of the worst. So why I am saying the worst? Because they expose everything you type on your keyboard. So whatever you're typing on your keyboard, everything will be captured by the keyloggers. Suppose let's say you're typing your passwords. We will be typing our credit card details. So we will be searching some private messages, right? So everything will be captured by the keyloggers. So keylogger means we can say that it is monitoring software. We can say hardware also, and designed to record what you write, right? And it could be either program on your computer. We can say small devices can be also keylogger. Keylogger can be a software. Keylogger can be a hardware. Okay. And what hackers steal the valuable information by using the keylogger? We will be entering the username and passwords, right? They will steal that credentials. We will be entering the credit card details, right, for verification purpose. So that will be steal by the keyloggers. So your entire chart history, because we are typing, that is also keylogger. And documents you have opened, that is also steal by the keyloggers. Screenshots of your activity. So everything will be captured by the keyloggers. So here my question is, how does a keylogger get? Suppose if you have the habit of leaving your personal computer unlocked at your home or office, anything, anywhere. So anyone who happens to the nearby, they can come and quickly install a keylogger when you are not looking at that your laptop, right? So they will steal your data, right? So how to detect and remove a keyloggers. So once the keyloggers are installed, keyloggers run in the background. They will be recording all your keystrokes. Then stolen information is usually encrypted and sent to the public message board, right? So where hackers can download it without being tracked them. So that is what keyloggers will do, and how to detect and remove the keyloggers. So we need to look for the keyloggers in your running processes, like we need to open our Windows Manager task, Windows Task Manager, and we need to look for the anything is there suspicious or not. We need to look for in Windows Manager logs, right? And we need to check your firewall's activity for anything is suspicious, so that we can find out the malicious logs. And we need to scan and remove keyloggers with an antivirus also. And so we can use the hardwares of the keyloggers also, right? There is a small gadgets connected between your mouse and keyboards, like, so we will be using the keylogging hardware devices also. So how to protect yourself from keyloggers? We can say that there might be some of the techniques we can use in order to protect from the keyloggers. So the very first thing we can say that we need to set up the firewalls. We need to use always antivirus systems. And whenever you are using, when you are talking about the physical environment, we need to lock our PCs, right? We need to lock our systems, right? So that is the main intention, we can say. So that is the keylogger. So how keylogger spread, you can see on the screen. So how to protect yourself from the keylogger? Just you can use the was that one-time passwords or two-step authentication. You can use using system with protective, I mean protection designed to detect keyloggers. And whenever you're typing something, so whenever you are doing internet banking and all, you can use virtual keyboard instead of typing physical keyboard. You can type virtual keyboard. Yes, when it comes to the spyware, see, spyware, what it will do, when you're talking about the spyware, it infiltrates the device without the owner's knowledge, and for the purpose of spying and collecting the data that can be used for fraudulent purposes. So that is, it will spy on our system, whatever we are doing. And what spyware can do, it will breach personal privacy, because it will spying on our system. It will collect confidential data, including by logging keystrokes also, right? So that's why I told that keylogger is one of these spyware. And when it comes to, it will steal the data, and we can say that, so there are credit card fraud also there by using. And when we go for the next slide, what is ransomware? So basically what is ransomware? It locks victim devices and encrypt their data, demands and ransom, right? So what attackers will do, they will do the ransomware attack. So if you spend this much of amount, they will encrypt our devices, our servers, our data, and they will demand for ransom. So if you provide that ransom, they will encrypt our, I mean, decrypt their our data, right? So that is what is happening in the ransomware. What ransoms can do, they will hold our devices, right? They will make the data inaccessible. So if the ransomware is attack is happened, it means we are not able to do anything on our devices. So everything will be holds by the attackers. It's result in financial loss. So what is the adwares? So nowadays, everyone will be getting the ads in our devices, in our laptops. So basically, whenever you're browsing, whenever you're using your systems and mobiles and all, you will be getting some adwares. Am I right? So it is an advertising supported software, so which will display unwanted advertisement on your computer. You can see on the screen over here, picture. Yes, sometimes we will be getting unwanted ads. So when you click on that particular ad, there's when you click on the suppose, let's say one example, suppose you are using your laptop, let's say one ad will come like this. Your, what is that, antivirus program has expired, you can install by clicking on this OK button. So sometimes we'll be getting that particular pop-ups, particular ads. So that can be hardwares, adwares that will be infected the malware. So when it comes to the what is mobile adware? So in mobiles also we'll be getting the adwares, right? We'll be getting the mobile adware, means adware and mobile devices. We can call it as mobile adware. It's become increasingly common nowadays. So it is doing it is common activity on our mobile devices. So it can be contacted through the third-part app downloads. If you download any third-part app downloads, so the mobile adware inject in your system, in your mobile devices also. So what adware can do? It install this spyware. So when you click on that particular ads and when you accept that particular ads, what it will do, it will share your data with third parties. It will install spywares on your systems. So many things will be done by the adwares. So what is rootkit? So what is rootkit? So basically rootkits hide by using some of the lower layers of the operating system, including API function, redirection, and undocumented voice functions, like which makes them almost undetectable by the common anti-malware solutions. Okay, and so we can say this rootkit, the word you can define it in our Unix and Linux operating system OS, the system admin and all the powerful account with full privileges and unrestricted access. So in Windows we have root, right? So in same way, the application that allow unauthorized root access to the devices and restricted areas like kit. So that is what we can call it as rootkits. Rootkits are often designed to create unauthorized access to computers, and it will allow the hackers to steal personal data and financial information. So that is what rootkits will do. So whenever you're using any softwares and all, so the genuine vendors will provide the updates, right? We need to update each and every software what they are providing, and watch out for phishing emails. We need to look for the emails what you are getting, and be careful of drive-by downloads. So whenever you're downloading something, we need to be careful, and we need to download some which is genuine, and don't download files sent by people you don't know. So in WhatsApp, in Messenger application, sometimes we'll be receiving the files from the unknown persons. And whenever you are adding in your groups, also in personal groups, so many of our friends also, they will be providing some links. So don't download any file sent by other peoples. So that is one of the way we can defend the rootkits. And what is malvertising? Is a type of malware that comes from the ads legitimate the website on legitimate websites. So that is malvertising. So what it will do, it will result in ransomware attacks, and it will steal the data, it will result in credit card fraud. So that is what malvertising can do. So when it comes to the next slide, how to create a malware? Yes, this is important, right? So everyone will be very curious about this part, right? So how we can create a malware, right? How we can create a malware? There are two ways. We can writing a virus program. That is the one of the way. If you are good at programming, and if you are good at batch programming and all, we can create our own malwares, right? We can create our own malwares. So whenever we are creating a malware, we will be using VB script, we will be using shell script, we will be using batch programming. So there are multiple programmings are there in order to create your own malware. So we can create malware by using the programming also, and a lot of tools are available in the internet. Using virus maker tools also, we can create our own malware. And what is the difference? Suppose if you are writing a program for virus, and if you are writing a program through a virus maker tools, so which one is efficient? Suppose if you write a program and if you deploy in the web and if you distribute on the web, so it will be infect multiple systems, right? So they, that is efficient, and no other antivirus tools can detect that type of programming viruses. So when you design the virus by using any tool, so there is a chance of antivirus solutions can detect that. because based on the signatures and that will detect the particular viruses, program, and the type of malwares which are created by the tools. So that is a major difference. So if you want to develop your own program, you can go for VB script, shell script, batch program. And so you can see on the screen, there is a sample virus code. So what it will do, so I wrote some batch programming here. So batch programming is nothing but that is structureless programming. So you can write anything based on your goal. Suppose here my end goal is I would like to delete whatever the files inside the victim Windows Mission System 32 folder. All the DLL files I would like to delete from the victim. So this is the program. What I will do, I will type it in the notepad and I will save that particular file with .bat extension, and I will send it to the victim through mail or through USB anyway. Okay, so whenever the user click on this particular file, this .bat file, so you can see on the screen of the program sample virus code, whenever the user click on that particular link, go to step 1. At step 1, what will happen? It will format the D drive, and go to step 2. It will delete the Windows 32 files, all the DLL files inside the system 32, and go to step 3. At step 3, what will happen? It will open the notepad and go to step number 4. At stage 4, what will happen? It will shut down the system and it will restart the system for every time span of 5 seconds. So this is my end goal. I'm writing in a one notepad. I'm saving that file with .bat extension, and whenever I send that file to the victim, whenever user click on that particular link, for every 5 seconds his system will shut down and restart. So that is what will happen in the, so it depends on whenever you're developing the code and malware program, it depends on your goal. So it depends on your target. So based on that, you can write your batch programming, shell script. So there are programs are available, you can use it. And there are virus maker tools, Bavish virus maker, SKW deadly virus maker, Sonic batch virus maker, Terabit virus maker. So there are many tools are available on the internet. These are the few tools you can see on the screen. And yes, so this is the important when you're talking about the malware analysis. So in the industry, in the every company they are dealing with the malware analysis. Actually, malware analysis is nothing but, we can say, analyzing the malwares. Let's say we have two types of malware analysis. One is static malware analysis, one is dynamic malware analysis. So what will happen in the static malware analysis? Suppose, let's say, so in your company your system has infected with malware. So in the static malware analysis, what our team will do, they don't run any malicious code here. What they will do, simply they will isolate the system from your network and they will take the hash of the malware. So whatever the malware has injected in your system, they will take the hash of the malware, and based on that hash, what attacker has targeted, they will analyze that particular code. So in the dynamic malware analysis, what will happen? So in the companies, they will be using the sandbox environment. So in every company, they will be using the sandbox environment. So what is the sandbox environment is? So the separate environment where they will be using the testing the malwares. So every day the malwares attacks is happening in the companies, right? So what they will be doing, they will be taking the pattern of the malwares, they will be taking the code of the particular malware and they will execute that malware, and after executing, what is the impact of that particular malwares. So that is separate isolated environment, that is sandbox environment, where they will test the malwares dynamically. So that is a dynamic malware analysis.